Hello, welcome to this next Flip Preaching video. This is Advent number 4, and we're getting very near now to the big day. And we have this week's passage is Matthew 1:18 through to 25, and we get to hear the story of Jesus' birth as Matthew tells it. Now, we're perhaps a bit more used to the stories that you get in Luke, because Matthew doesn't have very much detail, and he has a very particular slant on it. It's all about Joseph. Mary has very little of a role in this, it seems. It's all narrated from Joseph's perspective. It's all about Joseph's actions. It's a bit of an odd way of going about it, I would say. He seems to be Matthew, in his portrayal of it, he seems to be obsessed about the fact that Mary was a virgin, that they didn't sleep together before Jesus was conceived, that Jesus was fathered by the Holy Spirit. That seems to be Matthew's overriding priority within this story. He quotes in verse 23 from Isaiah 7:14. Matthew loves quoting from Isaiah. He does it again and again and again. This is the first time that he quotes it sort of word for word. And the thing is, there are at least two versions of the Old Testament that were knocking around at the time when Matthew wrote this. There's the original Hebrew version, and then there was the translation into Greek, which was the one that he quotes from here. So the original Hebrew one said, "A young girl will conceive." And it was a prophecy of Isaiah talking to King Ahaz that he will have a descendant, which turned out to be King Hezekiah. So it's not necessarily talking about the Messiah here. It was a prophecy from Isaiah to a king at the time, and the church has kind of taken this and applied it retrospectively to Jesus. But it said a young girl will conceive, not necessarily a virgin, just a young girl will conceive. The Greek version, which is the one that Matthew uses and quotes from here, more literally says, "A virgin will conceive and will bear a son." It's a bit ambiguous whether it means that there's a virgin now who will later conceive and bear a son, which is like the normal way it would happen, or whether it's a miraculous conception. It's a bit ambiguous and we're not quite sure. So there's not an awful lot of it's not very well supported from the Old Testament, the idea that Mary had to be a virgin beforehand, but Matthew certainly makes a large part of it. Interestingly, Moses, there was a Jewish understanding that Moses had an immaculate conception too, due to a particular reading of Exodus 2:25. Some people thought that Moses' mother didn't have normal intercourse before bearing Moses, and Jesus is in many ways the new Moses, setting people free from their sins. I don't know what you make of that. It's We'll move on. Joseph is also told in a dream. We have the first of Joseph's dreams here. He has quite a few dreams later on. And dreams are used again and again in the book of Matthew as a way of God speaking to people. And in a dream, he tells Joseph, well, a few things. Firstly, he reassures him that it's okay, that his wife-to-be is pregnant, but she hasn't been naughty. She hadn't cheated on him, which is what he probably assumed when it says that he was going to divorce her privately. I think what that meant was that he suspected that she had been unfaithful, and he could either divorce her quietly, or he could take her to court and shamefully expose her for what she had done. So he was going to take the more noble route, but God says that you don't need to worry, because the child was conceived from the Holy Spirit. And he tells Joseph what the child should be called, and he's There's a bit of a spoiler. You know the name anyway, it's Jesus, which is the Greek version of Joshua, which meant salvation, or the one who will save. So right from the start, it was very clear that Jesus was going to be the one who will save his people from their sins. The Isaiah passage I talked about earlier, Isaiah 7:14, the prophecy to King Ahaz about Hezekiah, ends with a very strange line. They will call him Emmanuel, God with us. When we've obviously taken that for Jesus as well. So a beautiful name for what's happening in this process. Through Jesus coming, through this baby, God comes with us, Emmanuel. Okay, I'm going to leave that there. Have a very, very Merry Christmas. I hope the season is a blessing for you. I pray that you will know that God is with you in a new way, and you'll keep hold of that knowledge forevermore. Okay, thank you for watching. Bye bye.